a lot for your time today. Punita Kumar Sinha is joining us, the Managing Partner of Pacific Paradigm Advisors and Chairperson of InCred AMC. Punita, good morning. So there's a bit of a concern on inflation once again. You think that could derail the rally, or would this be a buying opportunity?
Well, I think, a couple of things are happening. The Delta variant, while India seems to be on, opening up trajectory, the Southeast Asia in particular is getting hit quite hard now on the Delta variant. So the Asian markets are getting impacted negatively. So we do have negative global cues as well. I mean, the US markets have also been choppy. Asian markets are looking a little choppy given the variant and COVID spreads there. India is looking a little better because we've had our really bad COVID situation. That's not to say that it won't come back, but temporarily, at least we are on the reopening side. Inflation, of course, is a concern, not just in India, but globally, and I think everywhere, all central banks are focusing on that. So I think, and then, of course, you look at the valuations across the globe, and the easy money has been made, and so it's much more of a stock pickers market where you really have to work hard to find really attractive stocks. So I think that's really the environment that we are in at the moment.
Okay, good morning, Punita. Good to have you with us. Again, wear your global fund manager hat and tell us which is the bigger pain for the market. Is it growth because it is getting stymied with the Delta variants, or is it inflation?
Well, I think growth is still strong, and I expect that growth will remain strong. US is still doing very well. The economy here is very well. And even though here the Delta variant is being seen in various cities, because almost all people are vaccinated, they are able to have very mild symptoms, and work has actually resumed. So in fact, offices have opened up, stores are open, weddings are happening. So the US is pretty much back to normal, I would say, and that is a very big global positive for growth. So the US growth at the moment seems to be okay, but of course, COVID is unpredictable and we don't know what might happen. So it's very hard to predict during these times. So I think global growth is not so much an issue. Of course, China and Asia could have a little bit of a dip in growth. India, I think the growth should pick up because we've just come out of a very severe situation. So the real worry is not so much growth, but it is inflation and what the central banks do next. I don't think the central banks are going to do anything on rates. I don't think any central bank is looking to raise rates. In fact, we're still in an easing mode. Liquidity is still plentiful. Credit growth hasn't reached, bull market worrisome territories. So credit growth could still pick up. And I think the housing markets are looking quite good everywhere. So the only real worry is inflation, supply side bottlenecks, and if demand really goes up beyond expectation. Now in US, of course, unemployment is very low, so consumer demand is very strong. But if you look at the rest of the world, particularly emerging markets, I think consumer demand is still not at peak levels and is still quite weak. Unemployment is still high. And so I expect that we'll kind of limp along in this situation where we have fears of inflation and yet strong growth, and then pockets of the world which will continue to be in lockdowns and facing COVID problems.
Okay, by the way, the dips are getting bought, so no two ways about that. The low was 15,736 on the Nifty. We're back above 15,815, which is almost an 80-point recovery from the early morning low. Names like HCL Tech ahead of their numbers, up almost about 1%. Reliance is seeing some buying, so that one started off in the red but has now moved into the green, so there is plenty of action there. Punita, hi, good morning. I wanted your thoughts on HDFC Bank's numbers. the pressure that they've showcased this quarter because of COVID? And would you just, extend that, extrapolate that to the rest of the sector and be cautious? Or do you think that it is just a one-quarter thing and par for the course?
Well, I think in general, if you look at what COVID has done to the Indian economy, there has been quite a bit of unemployment. And so I think the consumer sector is under pressure. If you look at even the corporate sector, some corporate sector loans could also be at risk. But I think the consumer side is where I see a lot of risk as people, continue to see unemployment. So I think banks might face some pressures. However, it's very closely linked to what the economy does. I'm not too concerned because, as I said, the economy is on the mend.
Okay, by the way, IT clearly is the sector which is now helping the markets.
IT FMCG day today, so defensive.
Absolutely. So, and now just look at some of these stocks. The L&T twins, after, that one-day correction, are now beginning to move once again. L&T Infotech is now up 2%. And L&T Tech Services, that's a stock which is now making a bit of a move. Coforge as well is making a move. Just look at the mid-cap IT pack right now. Mindtree is moving up. HCL Tech, of course, the large-cap IT stock ahead of numbers. But the L&T twins clearly standing out right now. Punita, IT has been a stunner, right? And for some time now, for 3 or 4 years now, it's been the leader. Your thoughts on what's happening here and whether it's still a good pocket to be in?
Well, IT and Indian IT and then global technology has been a very, very good sector. While the Nasdaq is coming under pressure lately, I don't expect growth to be a big issue for the sector overall. I think digital technologies and the use of technology is still accelerating. So I think there's plenty of work for the Indian IT companies to capture, and as you've seen, large deal sizes are also doing well for Indian IT companies. And of course, the big issue for global technology, which might kind of filter its way into Indian technology sentiment, is regulation. The regulatory concerns across technology in US and China in particular. We've seen Chinese ADRs quite badly hit earlier in July when the Chinese regulators really came down hard on trying to kill monopolies or, put pressure on companies. So in India, we don't have that problem. So maybe Indian IT will relatively outperform global IT if regulations across the world get tougher. And I still think from a growth perspective, there's plenty of room still to grow. The only thing you have to really watch are valuations. And then if the sentiment overall turns negative for technology, then that might impact flows to technology stocks. I think that's sort of where I am at. But at the moment, I'm not seeing any huge concerns on Indian IT.
Okay. What about the younger brother of IT, if you please, the big digital space? You've got the Zomato IPO getting subscribed 40 times. And it was widely considered expensive because they're still counting earnings on sales, or rather price on sales, not price on earnings. And then you're going to get competition perhaps from Just Dial being bought by Reliance Retail. So generally your view on this digital space?
I think the digital space is continuing to grow in terms of revenues. And that's a global phenomenon. Now, valuations, it's very, very hard to really figure out how to value some of these companies. And so they're going to be benchmarked to their global peers. And the global peers are still trading at the kind of multiples you're talking about on based on sales. So I think, in fact, if you look at the Indian digital space, there hasn't been a lot of activity. We don't have a lot of players. We don't have a lot of listings as compared to when you look at other large economies, particularly US and China. India has really been a laggard on listed digital plays. So that also makes the supply is limited, and so the demand is outpacing because we don't have enough listed players. And I hope that with the listing of Zomato and a couple of others, that more will follow suit, and so you will actually have much larger listed space for the digital players. Until then, I think the very few that get listed will continue to see a lot of demand, and so valuations will remain high.
Okay, Punita, we'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot for joining us and giving us your view. By the way, the bulls are just swooping in and buying every